First of all, I thank all my faculties for giving me opportunity to present my work. Myself, Chinmay. I am the fresh graduate from MSA. Graduated like 2 weeks ago, and this is my thesis project which I'll be presenting you guys today. So for my thesis, I did this called reinterpreting the childscape, which is the proposal for play learning environment for orphans and destitute children. So before beginning the presentation, I would like to give a very brief upon uh, what was this project about and what was the need for the project. So about the project, this thesis proposal, tries to explore the role of physical environment in design of a physical environment in lives of children. And for any thesis project, there is this three components, which is observation, proposition, and anticipated investigation. So coming to observation, what I observed was the schools which orphans and underprivileged children go, is they're very sort of pragmatic, and they have very basic, like classrooms, toilets, etc. So what was my proposition was, so in my opinion, what is more important for schools are they should be sensitive to the children's need and promote creative development. And the investigation, what the thesis tries to explore is the role of architecture in child's creative development by design of learning spaces for them, learning spaces which can help them dream, aspire, and learn. So we are in current times of 2021, and education also sort of got reformed. Uh, there was this new national education policy that came in last year. So that sort of reformed or planning to reform the whole way how education was being perceived in India. So the left side, the hand you are able to see, that one is the previous module, how it was. So this gray part is what we will be interested in today's conversation. So basically, from age 6 to 16, we had this lower primary to high school. But in current module, if you see, it's like from 3 years. 3 years you will have something called Balvatika, which is kindergarten, and from age 6 to 9 you will have this primary school. And national education policy sort of focuses on so-called experiential learning, which is basically learning transcending from instruction to probing experience. So why am I telling all this is because right now it makes us as a designers to question ourselves, as of all this changed, will that change the way we design classrooms or the way we plan the schools? And the spaces, how is it going to affect? It's basically a built pedagogy. So moving ahead, so from this we got this term called experiential learning. So what is experiential learning is something I will take up. So nowadays, if we observe kids around us, in our neighborhood, there is something called child's consumer culture. I mean, in current situation, parents are also, both the parents will be doing job, and they will be, poor with the time they give to their children. So they give them, all these toys, and kids end up spending very less time outdoors. And when we compare this current situation to our older days, I mean, I am 97 born, so in my that was the last time, during our vacations we used to spend time in these fields, play with water body. We used to go for field trips and all that. So we have more of sensory pleasures of natural environment than being in a room and playing with some toys. So this is just a comparison to show what is happening with today's children. So moving ahead, I did a bit of research about forest school. So in present scenario, due to rapid urbanization, kids are they're spending very less time outdoors, and with they don't know much about nature and how to engage with nature, how to be explorative about nature, and they have we see something called nature deficit disorder nowadays. And coming to the build pedagogy, or the how classrooms have to be designed, and so this was the art installation. It is juxtaposition of all this classroom furniture in middle of forest. So you can see all these bags hanging on top of these trees, and all these furniture. So instead of what happens, instead of uh, children's being taught inside those four walls, then teaching happening in these woods. So this installation tries to question the notion of how teaching should be, and sort of things. And there were few movies also which uh, sort of showcases how children actually enjoy being close with nature. So this was a movie called My Neighbor Totoro. Hayao Miyazaki is one of the good movies. So in this, these are the two siblings who move to this new place, and they enjoy being in that place. So in this last photograph, if you are able to see, this small kid collects all the flowers from the gardens, and arrange it on the tables of his father, of her father, and she asks him to play the role of shopkeeper, and she is collecting the flowers and all. So this is an imaginative play, and if you have this natural setting, kids usually have this wide range of possibilities of imaginative play, explorative play, and all that. So moving forward, I made this further research of about outdoor play learning environment. So in this, I figured out for creative development, you need to have all these sorts of development, which is physical, social, cognitive, and emotional development. So to achieve this, there are these two components in outdoor space design, which is fixed components and movable components. Fixed components are they are anchor points in the landscape. They are sort of fixed, and they sort of dictate the design. For example, they can be trees planted. They can be the pathways, the trails, the bridges, etc. And movable components are a few things which you can move, and which you can, they're sort of flexible, like traffic cones, crates, shovels. There can be some small area where kids can practice construction, and climb right on walls, all that. So this is the case study of which shows movable components and fixed components. So yeah, if you can see, all these are textured pathways, and kids having these activity walls where they can write, they can sort of draw and all that. And there are also some of the elements like seaters, where they can as a group they can sit, or individually they can sit, they can have storytelling sessions and all that. And coming to movable components, there are these very movable elements like tractor tires, or these slides, or these seaters. Again, after like going through a few articles, I realized we can't really design something and expect kids to use it that way. When it comes to kindergarten design, or designing for kids, more than designers, we are sort of translators. We design, and outcome might be different. Kids might use things in a very different way. So we need to think of that notion of flexibility when we sort of design any spaces for them. So all this, why I'm trying to say is, I am not asking any one of you to design these. While designing, all I'm asking is sort of think about these sort of spaces, because outdoor spaces is also as important as indoor spaces. So coming to the outdoor play areas, this sort of circle now extended, now we have certain different types of spaces for kids when it comes to outdoors. Those are like gathering spaces, individual spaces, experimental spaces, ecological spaces, and active spaces. So what are these active spaces? Active spaces promote fitness and health, which we usually see in a lot of our neighborhood parks. They have a lot of these swings at, acrobatic few installations. So those are the ones which, sort of help them improve their gross motor skills. So those are the active spaces. Gathering spaces are like congregational spaces where, kids can come, they can have storytelling session, they can share few of their stories, what happened in their homes, what happened in the class, etc. And you also need individual spaces. Sometimes some kids might not go well with the community and they want to spend some time in some space alone. So as a designers, we should also sort of think of providing those spaces, a nook in the building design, a nook in the landscape. Experimental spaces, those are, if you see this particular image, in our childhood we used to do something very similar. We had some boat, wreck of a boat, we make something out of it, and we need some space for that activity. So these are like experimental spaces. And ecological spaces, so these are the spaces which brings children close to nature. And if you see this last image, kids are having some sort of adventure in that water body, walking around those rocks, and some even put rocks on top of other to make some castle or something. It's, you provide that space, and that space will give them freedom to, explore whatever they want. So yes, so this was the design proposal I made for my thesis. And the spaces which I discussed, I zoned them like this in my master plan. So the site was north south oriented, and in Mysore and Nanjangud, wind comes from southwest to northeast. So in south, I located this island. This island becomes the space for individuals. This is water body, and you have island, and kids can sort of play here and all that. And this kids play area is active places where it's studded with the play equipment, and they can have their physical development there. And in back, I have space for plantations. I visualized my project to be more of very spaces for rural kids, and the way rural kids see landscape is sort of completely different from the way kids in urban scenarios are brought up. And I have also this very thick forest setup. When you have these ecological spaces, that also invites the other set of biodiversity. It might invite bees and all that, and that creates interest for kids to explore the nature further. So coming to the until now we just spoke about outdoor spaces. So I will sort of speak about the indoor spaces as well. So I call this unbox the box of learning. Unboxing the possibilities. So in my childhood, and if we recall our childhood, the only sort of the way we were taught is teacher upfront instruction. So teacher was in one corner and we were all in the other corner, and it used to, they used to teach like that. But nowadays, after that reform of education I'm speaking, something called active learning is happening. So active learning is basically children are doing something and thinking about it. It also helps them to think back what they're doing. It's like a reverse process. You do something and then you think what you have done. And it also, more than instruction, it goes into probing experience. It goes for group discussions, and having problem based learning, cooperative learning. It's more like a design studio we used to have in our college. So schools are becoming more like that. So there are these possibilities of small group, then there are these large groups, and there is this individual support, two or three people coming together, they're having this small group. And there is this one faculty which helps students to achieve something in the groups together. So all these possibilities, if I'm putting it in a room, so my traditional classroom might not probably fit all these different activities, because different activities prompt for different furniture layout. So all I'm trying to establish here is a classroom can be designed having different furniture layout for catering to different activities. Like if you see here, there is this small cluster of furniture with those movable boards only. This creates certain nook for some students to work on their personal project, and also faculties can also have some sort of discussion over there. And here it's like more of the classes we used to attend. And here also there are these nooks of furniture that's happening here. So classrooms can be designed like this also in current times. So coming to the pre-design, before making the program and all, Sandeep sir had made this wonderful presentation where we had to understand pre-design as a primer. So before coming to the design, we need to understand and figure out a problem statement for the design. We should try to explore what is the design all about and what are we going to solve. So in this pre-design, I did user study and analysis. So user study and analysis was basically done on basis of three factors: based on users, amount of time users spend in the campus, based on the activities of the users, and based on the age groups. So mine was it also had housing also. So there are these also. When you're designing for children, when you're designing school, it's not just about children. It's also about the parents who come to drop them. It's also about the teachers. It's also about the support staff, and you need to consider that them also in the design. So these are the floating population, and this sort of tries to map
Sorry
the duration.
to interrupt,
Yeah,
Chinmay. Sorry,
yeah, yeah.
just that can you zoom in some parts, like when you're talking about like these little more.
Yeah. Sure. I'll do that, sir. Sorry. Yeah, now it's fine.
It's fine. Sir
Little
is
bit
asking
slow.
you to zoom a little bit more and show individual
Yeah,
images.
yeah. Sorry, sir.
Something
Yeah,
like that.
I sort of forgot about that. So yeah, so this sort of tries to map from what time to what time who all users will be in the campus. So these are the parents, children, teachers, support staff. At what time to what time they will be there in the campus, and residents of the campus who all will be there. There will be children. There will be these foster parents and all that. And this one, so based on the activities, so in activities, what all activities happen in school design is basically sort of institution. Along with teachers and students, you also have administration block, where you can have HM or account section and all that. So they also will be the part of design. And one more interesting thing about this design is the age group. Why is it interesting is, as we grow, our eye level will also starts going up, and the way we perceive the space will be completely different. So the way kindergarten child perceives space is entirely different from how an adult or support staff would perceive the space. I will make it more relatable. Like if you have visited your grandparents' place before, uh, I mean now it will look smaller, but it used to look bigger when you were as a kid living in that space. That sort of might happen to most of us. So that is what I'm trying to establish here. And then I also sort of did how user and space are related. So which all users access what all spaces. So this was the mapping of that. And then I did space to space relationship. So which spaces are together, which spaces can be far apart. This gives you the proximity factor of what all spaces can be grouped together, what all spaces can be grouped apart. So finally, the outcome of all these studies is the problem statement from which we can take design forward. So the design problem where SOS schools, which I was designing, it's also when we are designing schools, the education what do you call that, the education institution becomes the mode of education, and the belief of education becomes very important. Is it a Rudolph system of education? Is it Montessori type of education? Mine was, it was CBSE school. It was a government based education. So since a national education policy is reformed, how can I translate those into the current architecture is one of the problem. And how can architecture play a role in creating spaces and opportunities for experiential learning is the other one. And also in my campus, there were these different age group children that were coming together. I mean, all the age from 3 to 12 age group were coming together. How can I cater to those different age groups was something I had to think about. So yeah, coming to the site, I will briefly tell about what was this site about. So my site was in Nanjangud. I had these few things in mind, to select the site. In thesis, we have this, freedom to select our own site. So I had selected this site, 7.5 acre site beside Kabini River. That one of the major decisions I took was there was this proposal of waterfront development that's happening here. So once I select site, this will act like future possibility for kids to explore more about this surroundings, and also having water body near the site is aesthetically pleasing also in most of the situation. So, and coming to the land use, government basically allots certain land for certain purposes. So I took this part of land which is for government owned, and went ahead with the project. So coming to the further analysis, I did wind circulation diagram. That sort of reflected in the planning, southwest to northeast, you have south breeze coming up, so you locate all the sort of water bodies towards south, so you get the cold breeze towards your built spaces. So that was the direct translation of that, and you have this terrain analysis to figure out where all the drain water sort of comes and collects in the site. And this was the slope analysis. So slope figure outs. So from site analysis, I sort of got very basic idea of where certain elements should be placed. So I had this idea, where on top, the topmost point of the site, I will keep my one education block. So it feels like you climb on top of it to reach the temple of learning. So that was the metaphorical concept I have been thinking before that. So all this I will showcase in all the upcoming slides. So this is how site looked. You have paddy fields towards that side, and you have this dense foliage of trees in the backdrop. So this is the site plan. So this part is the play school I had designed, and these are the primary school and higher primary school. I had also designed some library, and this was the art center or art gallery where they can do practice art and all. And this part was the housing. This is the relatively, and if you observe in the slope analysis, this is the flatmost part of the site, and I had utilized it for playgrounds, basketball field or shuttle field and all that. So these are the basic translations I tried doing in the site plan. I will move ahead with the block designs. But before that, all these are the pockets of these greeneries I am trying to explore. And this is the topmost point of site where I had placed this higher primary block. And if you look, all this library and higher primary block are densely placed in this forest setting. So coming to the kindergarten design, so this is that play school I am talking about. So in this, in my second semester, I had designed kindergarten, and it was courtyard plan, and central opening was there. And but now I wanted to design place where they have common roof, they have sense of security, and they have this sense of monument. I was speaking about this sense of scale for kids, right? I wanted them to have this live in that huge volume of space. So this is how I had designed. So you have, I mean, there is one beautiful essay called The Mathematics of Ideal Villa. You guys can take down and you can refer that. So it's basically, there are these two plans, the centralized plan and the plan which Corbusier did for his villa. So it's basically like, I will zoom out a bit. Wait. Okay. Yeah. So these are the bays. Okay, when you design any school building, we sort of design in bays. So these numbers are units, like 2 1 2 1 2. These are the bays, and in the side, in the y-axis, we have 1.5 to 1.5. So 1.5 can be any number. If 1 is like 5 meters, 2 becomes 10 meters. So that's the proportion of the space. So in centralized this thing plan, you have this very little central space, and you don't have that sense of monumentality in the plan. So what Corbusier had done is, if you observe this one and this one, instead of 2, he made one bay 1.5, and so he maintained that proportion. So you get this multiple courtyard sort of plan, which I did in my this thing, and you have this central huge space for we call that participatory space. There is a famous architect called Hermann Hertzberger. He speaks about participatory space. Participatory space is nothing but how involved you are as a how much connectivity is there for you towards that space, physical, mental, as well as emotional connect to the space. So yeah, this is how it was. And if you see, you enter in this lobby and you enter, and you have this central staircase, which sort of defines the symmetry of the design. And you enter out. There is also a possibility of getting out into the landscape from these courtyards. And this is the view. And also, when you design, you need to have a at least vague idea of what that structure will be. Will that be a concrete, or will that be a steel structure? Because structure defines the the nature of the building. Will that be, the building mass? Will that be a heavy building imposing on the landscape, or is it going to be the light structure? In this design was, mix of both. The structure looks heavy, but the roof was supposed to be, light. So if you see, I have made this, a very truss, the north light trusses. All again, inside, it was located towards north-south axis. So I am trying to capture all this north light into my build space. And this is how it is. Kids get this very nice democratic space to play. There is no activities which I have, mentioned them. They can always, and sort of all these classrooms open up into this central yard where kids can come and, play and learn and do this thing. And in this section, you can see all these, different volume, that central huge volume that kids get to, play. And if you see first floor plan, all this is built. Then you have this huge terrace open to sky. So in this sort of built this thing, you try and give all these diversified spaces. Some spaces are enclosed, some spaces might be semi-open, and some spaces are very open to sky. How I made it visually connected, with these glasses you can still, connect to the sky, what's happening in the sky. You can literally see the birds also moving through the glass. So glass is a transparent material. How you use it and where you use it is something we need to take the call upon as a designers. So this was the, this was the primary school block. So in this, the fun happens in the elevation and bit of section. So here you enter, and the whole idea was, you shift the, visual aspect of you shift the frames. You enter and you have, you will not see the, landscape. You will see the blank wall. Then you enter, there is this curved wall. You will be moved into this sort of courtyard. And then you come into this a lot of big courtyards, and all these are same modules of sloping roof. These are all the classrooms, and you have this this space for gatherings where they can have prayer and all that activity. That room becomes the emphasis for the structure. This will become this will have the shell structure on top, and rest all will have sloping roofs. And in elevation is also sort of like this. You have this very long corridor in the front yard, and you have these pockets of built, and rest all opens up into this, the other frames which I was talking about. So it's like this, if you can see all this. And this is the central, view inside the classroom. Here it's higher primary, it's the instruction class only. But what I'm trying to achieve here is to bring the light from top. I'm trying to bring the north light into the build space. So this is how it was planned. So catching the north light was the idea. So you shift the blocks, create multiple courtyards. So courtyards will help you ventilate the whole, keep the whole place cool. Also, you get this north light. And this is the view from this part, this view. And I created these mounds where, kids can play, and, I gave them landscape, and it's up to kids how they use it. So that freedom and flexibility is what that counts in the kindergarten design, is what I believe. So from this view, you can also see the adjacent structure and all that. Again, the building language is very sort of brutal. It's very exposed brick and all. But yeah, this is my. This was that higher primary school which was there on top of the cliff, on top of the site. It was located here. This is that block I'm talking about right now. and it's surrounded with trees, and you had these dense contours. Okay, so how I sort of solved it is to start playing in levels. So if you see example Le Corbusier's Milloner's building, you have this promenade pathway. You ascend to that ramp, and then you enter the entrance of the building. So I had divided this corridors into two parts. One is flat corridors, and the other part becomes ramp. And then you have these voids where you can engage in the landscape, engage with the landscape around here. And you have this at the back, you have this deck where you can open up view towards this forest. It's a forest setting where you always see foliages of trees. So yeah, and this was that art center which I made. So central part I made it for a classroom, and rest all the surrounding corridor is for kids to sit, play, paint, and all that. Again, the structure is also sort of heavy. Also amalgamation of light structure. I have introduced bit of trusses to span that circular part. And this was the library. So library design, I also envisioned it like a participatory space only, where you have central cutout where kids can peep into the what's happening downstairs. So this was inspired by design of Villa Savoy, and all these, if you see, wait one sec. All these columns, it's set in the forest setting. I have placed so much planting around. So I thought, what if columns also sort of display the profile of the tree. So columns were designed like that to hold this jutting out plan on top. And again, the nature of spaces are how do you engage with the landscape at different levels. So you enter into this space, you have this lobby space, you have this reception, and you have this quiet reading space. You have these sort of ribbon windows to this part, and that opens up to the bark of the trees. I will show you this view. So in ground floor, you will see all this bark of the trees. What if, imagine, if you have those white bark trees densely packed, you see those trees near Chamundi Hills, when you go near. What if you have all those trees, bark of the trees, you're reading and you're seeing that. And then you go on top of it, the first floor, and in first floor you have these sort of ribbon windows, which tries to capture the foliage of trees. Everywhere there is greenery, and while you read, greenery is the best setting to have a proper peaceful reading. So I had done that. So before sort of concluding, I would like to talk about few of the design parameters. What I would have also considered while I was designing for this thesis project. So there is a need for us to consider some common areas while doing the space allocation exercise, which is like you need to have these common rooms. It's time for us to also think school belongs to teachers as much as it belongs to children. So no school development without team development. You should also think about schools. You should also sort of think about how schools are important for teachers also to develop their teamwork. So these are the space. In this plan, the classrooms are really huge, and they open up to one another. So you can have different furniture layout when you have big classrooms. Or if you have, let's go to another case where you have area constraint and you can't make it a big room. Then you introduce one more central room, a common room, where it opens up to both of the classrooms, and it sort of has that activity where you can bring people together and all. The
I think, Chinmay, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
we're losing a little bit of clarity of the image. Can you just go zoom into the closest when you're talking
Yeah,
for a
yeah,
second?
yeah, sure. I don't know. Yeah. So these are the classrooms. Sorry for the bad resolution. I didn't had some great lighting in my hometown. So this is the small rooms, and you have these common rooms in between for community gathering and all. I would give you a best example is if you have visited CFA campus, when you enter, you have that exhibition area and then the studio. No? They also have very similar setup where they can, rooms open up towards, it will be studio and some presenter will come and it becomes, some gathering space. And you can also have this notion of spill out spaces where all these different rooms can have one central sort of spill out space which can act like a place for sharing experiences. Similar happens to this fort diagram also. Spill out spaces are nothing but those extra spaces where it can accommodate more number of people. Like if we see MSA campus, the corridor width is quite more than what was it supposed to be. It's almost like 2.5 meters or 3 meters. Why that much is because it acts like spill out space. And coming to design, this part I would really love to share. It's the basic we all have been doing since our first semester. So there is this book called Analyzing Architecture. In that one chapter, he mentions about modifying elements of space making. So you have this concept in mind, and we sort of try to. There is a structure and there is this concept. How do you translate that concept into structure? So you have this. These are the different ways of doing things. Okay, in that book, I have taken those sketches. So you can have your entrance like this, very solid mass, very dense entrance, or you can also, uh, change the nature of space. Instead of making enclosed, you can try making it semi-enclosed with these, columns put. Also, the what type of columns you use also matters. Here, the circular columns always tries to put emphasis on the space making. Or you can have very slender columns and no roofs at all, which becomes sort of colonnaded pathway, and you don't have this roof. But it's still you still have that sense of roof because of those columns. So it's all about how you define the space and how you bring that meaning to those spaces. One sec, sorry. Yeah. And these are, and also one of the vital things for any building design, or especially for schools, are the fenestrations or the openings. How much opening and where the openings will be is very important. In that design, the kindergarten design, I had opened up the roof also because I wanted the kids to see the sky and the foliages of the trees on top. And windows also play a very vital role. You can have a dark wall with darkness, and you can have one circular window. Through that light enters. That creates certain emphasis. Or you want to connect the build to the landscape, you do these type of windows. If you want to expose the structure, you can have these frames interfering, which acts like multiple paintings or multiple frames framing the landscape. Or you can have a glazed facade also, with just seamless glass which opens up to the landscape, where there is not much of a difference between your built and the landscape. So that is also there. And coming to program and structure. So one challenge I had faced, I face every time, is I have lot of spaces and I have to organize it in a such a way to come up with some notion of how the structure will be. Will it be G+1? Will it be ground floor structure? What will be the shape of this thing? So these are all the possible ways you can achieve it. Okay. So yeah, you can have a linear structure with a linear entrance. You can have this angular structure. You can have this H. You can have this all this. You can in fact defragment the whole program and arrange it like that. So all these are the ways to organize the spaces. And how do you organize the spaces? You can organize it in many ways. Areas with similar areas, like big areas can be moved to one bay and small areas can be moved to another bay, or bigger areas can be grouped together, smaller areas can be mixed with one more bigger area. Also you need to think about what all spaces go towards with one another, how will they go, all that. So that was about program and structure. And this was the movie I sort of recently watched. I've been watching Miyazaki's movies. So this is the scale and perception of space. So when this happened with me during my thesis, okay, when we start off with designing, we get engrossed in design so much we forget the notion of scale, whom we are designing for. If we are designing for kids, kids will fade away in course of time, and we end up designing for adults with those standards of spaces. Imagine, okay, this in this movie there is this small girl, and who is, it's more or less like Gulliver and Lilliput sort of setup, but Japanese this thing. So look at, what if the cat is so big and this is that girl looking at that cat, and what if that character is so small, whereas the normal leaves which we eat become so big forest for her. Similar things happens to children, the way they perceive spaces are bigger than how we perceive the things. So that thing we need to try and understand while designing. So yeah, coming to the last slide. So these are the references and few books I had referred for my thesis, and also preferably for this presentation I made. So analyzing architecture, the few architects you guys should sort of refer to right now is this Hermann Herzberger, Mark Dudek. So go and have a quick read about what Herzberger has to say about the learning spaces. And this architecture for children, this book has a lot of case studies. These two books has a lot of case studies, more images as of what the spaces can be and all that. And Third Teacher is a wonderful book where the third teacher. I will very briefly tell it. So the third teacher is nothing but the built environment. We have our first teachers as parents, second teacher if we take it for the teachers we meet at school. The third teacher will be the built environment. So what we learn from the built environment, the notion of how spaces can be, all that the Third Teacher book tells about. And Children's Spaces by Mark Dudek, it speaks about a lot of essays, which I mentioned earlier, few of them. It talks about how children are nowadays, where they connected to nature, how will they play, all that. And analyzing architecture is very basic. It tells you through what lens you see and appreciate architecture. And Landscape and Child Development was the book I used for talking about those outdoor spaces and the standards of those landscape designs. So Construction and Design Manual, it talks more about more case studies and about the new reforms that has been happened throughout the other countries. So yes, that was all my presentation about. Yeah, thank you for this thing. If you guys have anything to add, you guys can tell. I took long, is it? 24 minutes. Yeah. Yes, sir, I'm sort of done with the presentation.
Thank you very much, Chinmay, for taking your time and presenting to our students. I think I'll leave it on to students and other faculty if they have any queries or questions or anything that they liked about the presentation, they can share right away.
Sure, 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 sure.
Will Kabini flood?
Yeah, I remember doing bit of research, but yeah, it will flood, but sort of it was quite long time. Like after, like very recently, it didn't flood much, so, but it does flood.
So what measures you took?
Ma'am, there was like quite a lot of setback from the river from my side. So that was the thing. That was the justification I sort of had, and also the land I had placed buildings such that the topography will not account for flood. And in the north part of the site, I have this lot of trees also as sort of barrier. So that was the thing, and the depth of river is also so much that it won't flood like the other parts of Kerala or something. So it was not much of the problem while I was designing. So yes, ma'am.
What was the land use? It was already an educational space. What was it for?
The land use was for public buildings, the red part. So and it was, the land was government owned, and it was non-agricultural in nature. So I took it up for the project.
You're talking about existing, no? Not the proposed one.
Yeah, existing, it's government owned and non-agricultural, and it was for public usage. So yeah.
Good presentation. I liked it.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Thank you. I'm glad. Guys, you guys have anything to ask or anything to tell? You guys can talk.
Yeah, actually, I had one thing. Like, how will you decide area for spaces? Like, approximate areas. You'll have to keep in mind for certain spaces, right? So, how can you decide the area for spaces?
Yeah, coming to that, this thing, we have these standards for education building. You need to have certain areas. For classroom, you get these bylaws and all these sort of books. You get these area statement. So it tells for a classroom, this is the minimum area you need. So you have some minimum area, like probably, like let's take 25 meters square, or some number we will take. It tells minimum this much is for this classroom, let's take. But then you have all your studies and you want bigger classroom, then you take a call, let's make it big, let's make 25, probably 50, double this size. And you figure out that, and you prepare that long list of areas. But until thesis, in studio we were given that area list by studio coordinators, faculties, and after like third year we started doing these case studies, literature study to come up with these area statements. So yeah. I hope I cleared your whatever.
Yes,
query.
yes.
Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, Chinmay, I saw, the students are not asking these questions, but I remember just in the morning, some students are asking me these questions. So
Yeah.
if you can tell them something about, bubble diagrams, why is it needed? Why do we do this? And something like, these proximity chart and other things. What are they? What is there? Where do we use them in design, in the entire process of design? Where does it come?
Yeah, sure, sir, sure. I don't know. I'll in the meantime I'll search for some sheets I had done before for my thesis. So bubble diagrams are basically for which spaces. First, you have this very long list of spaces. Wait, I'll just showcase some this thing. Yes, one sec guys, one sec. Yeah, are you guys able to see the screen?
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, so after like the study, right, I have this long list of areas. I mean, for this classroom, sorry. Yeah, we start with basic Excel sheet, okay? I mean, you have this space which is like the classroom. So you have this huge Excel sheet where you have this list of classroom and then you have these areas in the side. And then you sort of make a list of all these huge areas and you have these areas on one side and spaces on one side. It's like a graph and you make all the decisions together. The bigger spaces, you have this, yeah, you have this huge, list of spaces and then with varied areas. But before that, you need to have something called bubble diagrams, which bubble diagrams basically can be done in two different ways. It can be done without considering the site conditions and by considering site conditions also in later stage. So bubble diagrams are basically for, to figure out what areas come together. Probably the entrance and foyer and administration blocks can come together. The classrooms and the cafeteria can come together. So you put those together, and that is the purpose of the bubble diagrams. And then after that, you need to start giving dimensions to these areas. These are just numbers, right now. So these are the numbers, bigger areas can be like around 250 meters square, like in this presentation. The biggest area I have is for multi-purpose hall, which was for 200 meters square, and rest all are fairly average. On an average, they also fall under less than below 50 meters square. So I can group all this together and sort of play which areas can be grouped together, and you figure out the dimension for that area. Will it be square? Will it be rectangle? I mean, 50 meters square, it's L into B, right? So you figure out some dimension. Will it be going to be a squarish dimension or will it be going to be a rectangle? Then you mask them together. Which areas can be grouped together according to geometry? And then there might be some situation where you need to have this very skewed geometry also, which is also fine. You might end up having certain areas which are semicircular, which are sort of triangular. That is also fine as long as they go well with the structure and the geometry. And yeah, this is how you zone the you group the areas together. And once you sort of all the have areas together with proper some guiding principle, then you go ahead with the massing. Which areas where on top of what block will other block come? Is it feasible to put a multi-purpose area in the ground floor, or should it go to first floor? All that, and where staircase is coming. All these areas are like solid rooms. You still don't have circulation for that. For circulation, you need to consider that extra factor, which will be like usually it's 15% or some number you have. So that number you take and you figure out that extra. Circulation usually ends up having this corridors and spill out spaces. So you figure out those and bring those areas together. So once you have all the areas sorted, it's high time for all of us to think about the structure. And when you have that big area, right, 250 meters square, there are not going to be small walls. Some walls you need to have columns will come in between. We need to also think about how structure stands. So we need to figure out that one also. So if you don't want to, if you want like clear span and you don't want on top, you might as well isolate one of these huge area block from rest of the clusters. So those are the sort of decisions you make while making areas. And all these bubble diagrams are for initial studies. And when you put bubble diagram on site, the story is different. It's not just about which similar areas goes together. It's also about on that particular site conditions, probably how it actually sort of fits. In my scenario, I had the grid is very similar. You have like 3 rows of buildings. One row of institution building, then in middle you have these playgrounds, and in last you have this housing. It's a very clear distinction of axis, 3 different lines of 3 different building typology. And when I zone them on site, I on a basis of bubble diagram, I made this decision. Okay, you have this wind direction coming this way, so let's zone our water bodies and other water features towards south, so that you get the cold breeze inside. And then how do you orient the building? Then while zoning, while putting that bubble diagram, I also sort of partially made the decision. Let's orient the building towards north south. So to capture the north light and to get the south breeze. And also, when you zone the building, you also take into consideration of site factors like views, from where it opens up to views. Here I had paddy fields. Here opening up to views doesn't make much of a sense, because it's already a dense forest having at the back. And here there is no point in opening up to the views towards the landscape, because it's a barren land. You figure out where are the potential viewpoints, and then while doing that bubble diagram, you partially, and I'm not telling that's the concrete idea, that's the decision you're making at the bubble diagram stage. You figure out vaguely, okay, this is where I sort of will be zoning my structures. And then you have these contours also coming in between. So usually this contour interval was 1 meter. So between 1 level, I had this 1 meter difference of ground that was happening. When you zone, you also sort of making this zoning diagram. You make this also. You need to visualize. If you place this structure in the lowest contour and one structure on top, this structure will look, will go 1 meter sunken. You need to visualize that, that skyline of that particular site, how it looks in that very long section, which comes on top, which comes in bottom. In this thing, this is on the highest point, because I intended it to be temple for learning sort of metaphor. So it comes on top of the site. So all those decisions will partially happen in bubble diagram stage. And once you sort of figure out all the areas together, you will have your structure ready. So yeah.
Yes, thank you, Chinmay. That was, I think that was very, clear. I think the students are benefiting from this, whatever you have told.
Yeah.
If there are more questions, I think the students should ask.
Yeah. One more thing I wanted to add up, like I was recently I was checking MS's YouTube channel. So Sandeep sir's video of that PreDesign is still there. You guys can check out on that and refer, if you're free, refer to that and that will clear you a lot of the things about bubble diagram and this area programming, all, and proximity chart, pre-design as a primer and all that. It was a very interesting presentation that happened during our thesis last year. So I refer to that. It's a very good content. So yeah. Guys, you have anything else to ask or anything else to say?
Okay, Chinmay, on an informal note,
Yeah.
would you also like to share, like, how this is, I think, a common thing that we observe among first years. The students are very less interactive in the beginning, but over the years you realize that the more you interact, the more you learn. So what do you have to say about that? Shouldn't the students stop asking questions right away?
Yeah, what I would rather say is, like, see, guys, when I joined first year, I mean, until now, I'm not like very reading types. I don't read lot of books, and in architecture course, you need to read lot of books, listen to people. So one of the good things I had was I could approach people. Even though I had stupid doubts, I could ask people. And by asking, questions, that initiated like lot of conversations. So one of the good things that happened at MSA was in this like break times, in canteen, in corridors, I used to go and pose some random question I had regarding design or anything about architecture to one of the faculties I wanted to talk to, and they used to give lot of inputs also. So, and when you don't need to read lot of books to know things. You start a conversation and they will automatically, as a response, will start giving you some opinion about what they think. You can listen to podcast, you can sort of listen to audiobooks also. You don't need to read. And then if you have conversation, you know things. So a lot of the things I know is by talking to people. I had talked to Vivek sir, Sandeep sir, Priyanka ma'am also. One day, I still remember, I go to staff room and I ask them whether they are free, and I ask them, oh, why do you think you should have these in Indian context? Why do you have these railings in this windows? And if you see all these Western buildings, you don't have those railings. You don't have railings in that Villa Savoy building. So that simple stupid question led to some interesting conversation, where she giving me some ideas and opinions about what she thinks about architecture in India and architecture in Spain and all that. So you need to ask questions. It doesn't matter whether those are stupid questions. The important thing is to ask, to initiate conversation, to talk. I mean, we might not know a lot of things, but having opinions can lead to certain things where we can take that further. Probably while talking, faculties might tell you some books from which they took that, they had come up with that opinion. You go and read that book if you're free, if you want, and then you get your own set of opinions. And in architecture, it's very important to have opinions of your own. You can't be sort of accepting whatever, because there are a lot of things happening, a lot of ideologies. You go to Bangalore and see there are like probably like hundreds of offices with their own ideologies of design. Some look into the practice as the practice. It's about construction, it's about architect is more like a contractor. They go to site and build. There are some practices which focus more on drawing. They produce very meticulous drawing. They bring on table the notion of all these teachers who taught them in the bachelors and all that. That is like offices like 100, and there are these studios like Matthew Ghosh, and a lot of practices. They have very different ideologies. So it's important for you to have your opinion as of what you think about architecture is in your own way, and that will happen when you talk to people, you talk to faculty, you talk to your friends. We still do that. Manoj, he is one of my friend, he purchases some book, he puts them in the WhatsApp telling, oh, I got this book. Then we read that book and we have some random conversation for an half an hour or about what that book is, what we really think. So that sort of small conversations are important, because in long run, 5 years, we will be continuing doing designs, having studios and all that. So yeah, talk to your friends, talk to your faculties, and you're adults, 18 plus, so you can talk to them. You're not children. You don't need to be scared to sort of talk to people. You're adult. And one of the things you need to think right now, I was also shocked. Okay? You have completed PU and you made a decision that I will be doing architecture for the rest of my life. Because you chose this course. And it's not an easy decision, If you're making that decision, that means you're an adult. And you don't, adults need not to be scared of talking to people, Respect the elders, talk to them, and they will have a conversation with you. There's nothing to be scared of, and there's nothing to be being judgmental. Either ways, people will judge you. They will, if you do some drawing, they will judge you. It's good, it's bad, but it doesn't matter. We have to talk. We need to get some opinion. I will talk. So yeah, that's it, guys. You guys need to talk. So if you guys still wanna have chat, you can talk to me. I can make myself available to you. But no, yeah, this is what I wanted to say, and I can't say more than this. This is what I can summarize after these years, for first years. So yeah, talk to people. No, it's fine. Once you start talking to people, you will break out of your comfort zone and start talking to people, and they will have to tell you, stop speaking. My friends do that for me. Chinmay, please stop talking. Talk too much. When you start talking, do that.
Yes. Your faculty also tell you that, right?
Yeah. Stop talking. It's enough, Chinmay. How much will you do?
Currently, we are at a stage where we are saying, start talking.
Yeah.
Okay. Good, Chinmay. This was wonderful.
Sure.
Yes.
Thank you for having me here. It's good to see all of you together.
Thank you, Chinmay. It was actually wonderful.
Oh, thank you, Mani. Thank you.
I hope the students have, I think they definitely would have developed their knowledge and their understanding of whatever we are trying to explain far better right now with you explaining it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that's it. Thank you, Chinmay. So I think we'll call it a day with this.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me, sir.
Yes. And as you guys all know, Chinmay is available for you. So whenever you want, you would like to have a discussion with him separately on your designs also. I think as a senior, he'll be happy to help you out. So that kind of particular connection is open.
Yeah.
See you guys. See you in the next class of design.